Well, welcome everyone. I want to welcome everyone to another one of our candidate interviews. And today we've got, oh, hang on a second here. I've got a couple of things here I need to, there we go. Today I am joined by Jamie Smith, who is running for the legislative representative position in the 25th district. She's running for position 1. And welcome, Jamie. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so let's get started. First of all, just by just do a little brief introduction and tell us a little bit about yourself and why you decided to run for office and what you'd like to accomplish.
Yeah. Thank you. So my name is Jamie Smith, and I'm a very proud high school history teacher in the Puyallup School District. I've been in education for the past 16 years through teaching history as well as coaching. And then I also am a regional curriculum trainer. So I actually teach character development program across the country in non-COVID times to teachers. And what inspired me to run was actually my students. In the 17 years I've been in education, I've watched as more and more of my students have struggled with mental health issues. And we talk about it, but I haven't seen the services that have been coming that we say we need. I've watched as more and more of their families are working, 1, 2, 3 jobs, sometimes 50 hours a week. And with 2 jobs, and the reason it's 58 is because they have 2 29-hour-a-week jobs, and it's 29 hours because at 30 you get healthcare. So they keep it at 29. They work 2 jobs, 58 hours a week, and still can't provide healthcare for their family. I've watched as more and more of our students have become homeless. They estimate that there's over 40,000 homeless students across the state. And to put that into perspective, that's 1 in every 25 of our students. And I'm very terrified that with COVID that number is going to skyrocket. So these are major issues that are impacting our communities, that are impacting our families. And we hear it talked about year after year after year, but we aren't doing the steps that need to be done to make sure that we're taking care of them, because everybody deserves a safe place to live. Everyone deserves to be able to have access to healthcare, and everyone deserves to be able to have a job that they can support themselves with. And so that's, I've ran before. I was only 611 votes short last time, but those issues are still there. And just keep running to make sure we can protect our communities.
Right. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, you see it every day, I'm sure, in the schools. That's got to be a challenge. Okay, well, let's get into a little bit of some of the issues. I want to talk about the Fife area and the Port of Tacoma specifically, and our areas here. And how much research have you done, and what do you know about the Fife area and the Port of Tacoma, and how do you think you can help this area?
Yeah, so I've been in contact with some of the people from Fife. Brian Yamby on the city council has actually endorsed me, and he has been telling me about the area. I've come out and visited. I have multiple friends who work on the port. I've toured through the port and just gone through the area, multiple people that I know who live there. And what they've been saying is, traffic, and if you go through the area, is a huge thing. And so finishing 167 is one of my top priorities, making sure that we can get traffic in and out of the port much faster. We are the most trade dependent state in the entire nation, and Pierce County is the most trade dependent county in the most trade dependent state in the nation. So when we have a slowing down of the port because we can't get transportation and goods and the in and out fast enough, that actually increases the cost for everybody. It increases the cost for businesses, for transportation, and for the consumers. And so finishing 167 is something we've heard year after year after year, and it seems to be put off year after year. And so that's one of the biggest things that I have, is making sure we're going down there and that we're finishing that so we can get the semis in and out faster, and we can get families home faster to spend more time with their families, because every day it's a slowdown, and it's just getting worse, especially because Pierce County is one of the fastest growing counties in the nation as well. So making sure that we're doing that, working with the families and the communities that are there. Fife is pretty amazing in that it has so many great parks for families, so many great walkable areas that families can go to. And we want to make sure we're maintaining that while also supporting the business and making sure that families have the ability to work close. 50% of the people in Pierce County who work outside of the county. And so trying to also bring more jobs without increasing the traffic is one thing. So making sure we're keeping up with that.
Great. Well, that we already talked a little bit about our next subject, but I do want to get a little bit deeper into transportation. Like as you said, it's a huge issue here. It's it's been the number one issue here ever since I've been working at the chamber for, I've been here at this chamber for about 7 years now. And it's been the top issue here for a lot longer than that. So, we chamber worked hard to get 167 pushed through for many years, and now work has finally started. We're excited about that. But I know that there are a lot of other transportation issues, including public transportation. What are your thoughts on public transportation, and how do you see that integrating into the community?
So we know we need more public transportation. We are growing at such rapid speeds that our roads cannot keep up, and we cannot just keep adding more lanes. Now, we do need to add some more. I have to say, where 167 goes from 3 lanes to 2 is just a traffic nightmare every single time. And the last gas tax increase, they got some more money to add more to 167. And a representative actually told me, well, you guys in Pierce County got more than you deserved. And I was like, I don't know about you, but I've actually measured that 3rd lane only goes 1/4 of a mile into Pierce County. So if 1/4 of a mile is more than we deserve, then our representatives have not been fighting hard enough, because so many of us work up in King County or travel back and forth. So making sure that we are adding that 3rd lane, but that's still not going to be able to stop all of it, the traffic that continues. So making sure that we're adding public transportation, more rapid transit buses in different areas. For instance, I live in the South Hill area, and going from South Hill to the Sounder is horrific. If we could add some fast buses that in the morning and afternoons go from Graham directly to the Sounder, we could potentially get 50 cars off the road for every bus that goes. Making sure that we have the light rail, that it's going to go through Fife, that it's going to, and that we have parking next to it. I understand that part of the idea is that we want it walkable and we want people to hop on, but if we don't have parking next to it, people cannot use it. And so making sure that we have parking, that people can take the light rail up into Seattle will get more cars off of the area. And then also just making sure that we are planning for growth, including the growth of transportation. Right now, we're continuing to add more and more houses without continuing to add the roads. And some things are even as simple as making sure we have left turn lanes. I've actually been working with a community member who's been identifying different areas across the 25th that simply adding a left turn lane could increase the flow of traffic and get rid of a lot of the congestion. We've actually talked with Speaker of the House, Lori Jenkins, and it's something she wants us to bring up in January, so that even those simple things, we know there's more to do, but those simple things now can have a huge impact later. So increasing public transportation, rapid transit buses, also getting more Sounder trains. They're packed. Now we know with COVID things have shifted a little bit, but there are so many people who would also love to take it, but their work hours don't fit in that traditional 9 to 5. And so making sure we have more of those trains throughout the day, so that people can go up to Seattle, go into Tacoma and enjoy it and still get home without having to take their cars is going to significantly decrease transportation on the major highways. And it's better for the environment to have more cars off the road. And it's better for our families to be able to spend more time together and less time in traffic.
Thank you. Let's move on to a different subject. I want to talk about economic development and the business recovery and jobs. As you know, COVID has taken a big hit on the business community. And what are some ideas that you might have in order to help the businesses with the recovery and to promote job growth here in the South Sound?
Yeah, so COVID is, our economy was booming, and then COVID has just tanked it so much. We know that our small businesses, they estimate that between 12 and 46% will be gone by the end of January if we don't do something. And so we need to be working with every resource we have possible. That includes the federal government, the state government, the city, and the county governments. Unfortunately, the bigger you get, the slower the governments tend to work. So we need to work on partnering together to find ways to provide loans, to provide grants, to provide access to more PPE, and possibly even to cover the cost of PPE. For a lot of our small businesses, they don't have human resource departments. They can't have people figuring every single change that we make, readjusting their entire business and getting the new types of PPE or the new types of regulations. So we have to make sure that we have very clear guidelines so that when we give it to businesses, they know exactly what they're supposed to do. It's really confusing, especially for businesses that are mixed. We have some that are retail, but they also have arcade games and they also sell beer. So are they a bar? Are they an entertainment venue? Are they a retail establishment? Can they open? Can they not? And right now, a lot of our plans aren't addressing the different styles of business. So we need to make sure we're giving them that and that we're helping with PPE. We actually have a great example. Sidhu Farms in this area, the Pierce County, the council helped get them $6,000 so that they could get a sanitation machine so they could still open up their pumpkin patch so that people can enjoy it. They're still bringing in money. And yes, it's $6,000 that we're providing, but it's going to bring in even more money to the area for that. And so looking at those partnerships through the city, the state, the county, and the federal government where possible, I think is going to be a really big one. For growth, we know 50% of people work outside the county. We have to bring more jobs here. We have some great manufacturing areas already in Pierce County that we can look at growing, as well as maintaining our farmland and not just paving over it, because these bring a lot of people to the area. And we know that when we can buy things local, it keeps more money directly local. Local small businesses bring anywhere between 60 and 75% back into the economy where they are. So making sure we're protecting them and then looking at doing things like bringing PPE manufacturing to Washington and more specifically to Pierce County. It's more than just a COVID issue. We have an aging population. We are going to need more of this equipment. And so even if COVID were able to get a vaccine and it went away, this is still stuff we're going to need in the future, even if hopefully we don't have another pandemic like this for 100 years. And so this would bring jobs to our area, and it would also keep the manufacturing in the United States, which is a really big deal when we run into these types of issues.
Right. Thank you. Let's switch gears a little bit and go to something that I think that you'll enjoy, and it's one of my favorite subjects, workforce development. Chamber here, we have a workforce development program. We work real closely with the Fife School District, and we have a program that we do, and it's an 8th grade STEAM Career Day. And what other ideas that, surrounding workforce development that you have that might help build that workforce that you were talking about?
So workforce development is one of the best investments for money. You will always get more back. When we have better trained workers, it saves money for businesses. We have better workers, it brings more money to businesses, which is more tax dollars without raising taxes because we have a better workforce. So this is huge. One of the things that I really want to support being a teacher is more trades in schools. And like what Fife does, that workforce development, connecting those high schoolers with the workers now so that they can learn those skills, that they can get credit for high school while they're doing it. And then when they graduate, that means the businesses have better trained employees already. And this is something that actually our local area does pretty well. We have the farm with Franklin Pierce. We have the skill center with Bethel. We have a CAD and auto programs in the Puyallup School District. Fife has the workforce development. We have a lot of these things, but a lot of places in the state don't. And so I want to take these ideas that we're doing so well in our area and help spread them and increase them across the state so that we have that development everywhere. And one of the reasons too is for a lot of times we've been telling kids it's college only. In fact, I worked in one of the Gates small schools when I first got started in Tacoma, and we could only promote college. That was the idea. Mm-hmm. We give these kids this false sense that either you work at McDonald's or you go to college. But we forget to tell them that there's everything in between. And the trades are desperate for workers. We have construction jobs that we haven't been able to do because we don't have enough workers for them. So letting our students know about these great family wage jobs in the allied trades, in the painting, in electrical, connecting them in high school allows our students to graduate with skills and graduate straight into jobs that they can be able to support themselves on. And so this is definitely a big one for me down in Olympia, is making sure that we're developing it within the schools, as well as continuing those trade programs afterwards. Agreed.
Thank you. That's great. Let's switch gears a little bit and go to housing. As you know, there's a housing shortage. What kind of things can be done in Olympia to help alleviate that problem?
So we have a national housing shortage, and part of it is that recoveries usually, one of the things that usually leads them is construction. And one of the reasons we had the longest recession and that ever is because because we lost so many mom and pop construction agencies, those people who do the infilling, build the houses, in your neighborhood, one or two at a time. And the result is we really just have more of the larger companies that are doing entire units. So unless you can put in 100 houses, 200 houses, they're not doing that. So looking at making sure we're supporting our local construction agencies who will do that infilling, looking at the potential of allowing things like tiny houses in different areas, or allowing second unit dwellings on already developed land so that people can have the mother-in-law's cottage, so that they can have those things. We can look at what some other states are doing. Some states have been, I believe Portland, we'll want to see how all these work, but they're doing a thing where they're actually putting tiny houses on people's backyards who agree to it. The city pays for it, but after about 5 years, and they go through, the homeowner gets to make sure that the person who's in it, they're focusing on women with children, that they're safe. They go through background checks to help get them housing, because the local police department estimates that 80% of the homeless are people like my students and their families. This gets a safe place to live, and after 5 years, that house, that tiny house, now belongs to the homeowner. So they can start renting it out and they can make money off it. So it's a benefit for the homeowner, it's a benefit for the city, and it's a benefit for the individual who gets housing. Mm-hmm. We also need to look at some of our regulations that we have. Right now, it's really hard to build condos because of the regulations that are in the requirements. So there's only about one group on the west side and one on the east side that is going to ensure these and make sure that they're built. So looking at those rules, why we have them, and what we can get rid of to build more condos. I know a lot of people in their 20s and 30s, and a lot of people in their 70s and 80s who would love condos. It's a lot less work. It's their lifestyle a lot more. So looking into that is also going to be a big area. And then looking into how can we incentivize making sure that we have affordable housing, because that's a big one, is that with less housing, it means the cost of all housing goes up. And one of the things I'd like to look at when it comes to building affordable units is quite often you have to have a set amount or less to get into it. The problem is if you get more than that, you're now kicked out. So I had a friend, for instance, he made $20 a month too much to be in for affordable housing, but that $20 won't allow him to live anywhere else. So if we can look at units where people can get in, and then as they get raises, because that should be the goal, is that people keep getting raises. We don't want them to be like, oh, we're giving you a raise in your job, and you're like, oh, please don't, because I get kicked out of my house. So we can look at mixed housing where as you make more money, you just simply start to put in more money into that housing. It automatically starts to create this multi-level housing for different economic areas, and it doesn't punish people for getting better jobs. Instead, it simply adapts so that they still have safe housing. And then because they're paying a little bit more out of pocket for it, it also starts to invest in that, which can go back into building more affordable housing.
Right. It's interesting. The ADUs and the tiny homes have come up in other interviews that I've done as well. And I'm just curious. I don't know if you know the answer to this question. You probably not, but I was just thinking about those. How do you happen to know how they do they tap into if it goes onto a person's property? Do they tap into their septic, or does it have to go into like city sewer systems? Do you know?
I'm not sure. The places that I've heard of them building, there were places that already had sewer, so then it went into the local sewer system. Okay. I haven't actually looked into the septic issue.
Yeah, I'm just curious. I just thought of that while you were talking about that.
Yeah, I had a septic tank, and I get to know if they're adding more.
Yeah, and they're only rated for so many people. So that's, I know there's limitations there. So anyway, that's interesting. Okay, let's move on to the next subject. Mental health. You talked about this a little bit earlier, but it's a big issue, and something that that we deal with a little bit here in the Fife area. There's a homelessness issue around here, and it seems like it's pretty closely connected with mental health issues also, and drug addiction, and I know those aren't the only issues, but what are some things regarding mental health that do you think you can do in Olympia that would address this issue?
Thank you. So, being a teacher, I've seen my students with mental health issues skyrocket in the last 17 years. And one of the things that I'd like to do that we could help with students right away is they did pass funding for more counselors. And then COVID hit and they had to cut it. So we know that's going to be a while. But one of the things that we could do right now is if we passed legislation that said that a certain percentage of counselors' time had to be set aside for direct student contact. So instead of doing lunch duty every day, instead of focusing on bus duty, instead of having to monitor some tests, you're actually helping students, giving them the skills that they need, helping our students who are in crisis and getting them connected to other agencies in the area that can help them more long term. That wouldn't cost us any more money, but it would help our students now, which would give them skills that can help for the rest of their lives. And so I think that's a really important one that we start looking into is how can we get more mental health services for our students. When it comes to the community, we need more mental health programs, and we also need more mental health professionals. We don't have enough right now. And so making sure that we have, whether it's college loans or grants for individuals to go into that, to make sure that they can help out, whether it's looking at also the regulations of a friend of mine, her daughter went into psychology, and the amount of hours that she had to have before she could bill for insurance was basically a year or two of working with people, which means all of her clients had to pay out of pocket. And so finding out what are these rules, why do we have them, and what would be reasonable? What can we flex? Why is it that they have to have that many hours in? If there's a specific reason, okay, great, keep it that way. But if there's not, then maybe we need to relook at that so that we can get more mental health professionals onto our streets right away. And then you mentioned, mental health, homelessness, drug addiction can go hand in hand. They can also be completely separate. People have mental health issues and they're not homeless and they're not addicted. They have addictions and they have a home. But you'll see a lot of people who are living on the streets, especially what they call the visible homeless. Those three go hand in hand. And what came first? Who knows? Because I got to tell you, if I was living on the streets, yeah, I would definitely be having mental health issues. And yeah, drugs and alcohol would be a nice, thing to make me forget it. And so you can't say that one necessarily caused the other. It's all together. But that means we also have to look into how can we help all of those things at once. And one of the things I'd like to look into is how can we repurpose facilities that we already have. So I don't know if you know the Rainier School up in Buckley, but it's a school for those with developmental disabilities. And it was built with about 1,500 beds, but they use less than 300. If we could somehow turn that into a dual use facility, there's 100 beds, they already have medical, and they already have job training there. We could turn it into a facility to help people get over addictions for 90 days because those 30 days is often not enough. And a lot of the mental health facilities actually have people leave after 2 weeks, which is definitely not enough, whether it's for mental health or whether it's to overcome addiction. So if we could turn that into a 90-day facility, we could help people get mentally stable. We could help them get physically stable. We could help them come off any addictions they might have, get them reconnected to family, reconnected to the communities, and get back into the community like we want them to be. And that could be up to 1,000 beds at once right now that we have, if we could find a way to do that. So I think looking into those types of facilities, we really need everyone to come to the table with ideas because right now we have a huge glut and we need to do something quickly because it's just getting worse.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a complicated issue for sure. Okay, so let's move. I've got one more topic here, and then I'll let you go on to your final thoughts. But let's talk about climate change. It's another one of those growing issues. And what kind of things that can be done in Olympia to help alleviate some of the issues we're facing with climate change?
So climate change is interesting because it's one of those issues where we keep thinking we can put it off. Okay, well, it's going to come later. It's not going to impact me now. But it's the one thing that we can't live with. Like we will literally die if our climate changes and we have too many fires, if we don't have the ability to have food, if the water rises, if we no longer can fish. My uncle was a fisherman, and there were many years where he could not go out fishing because the fish weren't there. Or he did crabbing as well. And there were many years where the shells on the crabs were too soft. He couldn't get at them. And those are huge industries for us in this area, whether it's shellfish, whether it's fishing. And so we have to take these seriously, because these are many of our livelihoods, as well as for the environment. We all need clean air to breathe. We need fresh water. We need fresh, good land so that we can grow our food, and so that our grandkids have they have a life and that they are successful. So these are things that we need to take seriously. There are a lot of different ideas out there of things we can do, but some things we can do right now is we have the amazing ability. We have such an amazing environment in Washington State. We have the ability to do solar. We have the ability to, solar doesn't work quite as well on this side. We're a little bit gray, but the other side of the state, solar is great. We have wind. We have hydrothermal. We have the UW is working on tidal energy. And if we can figure out how to make sure things don't corrode in salt water, we could literally be making energy every time the tide goes in and out. So investing in these clean jobs. Now, there are some people who seem to like to say, why would we do that? We have the energy already. But one of the things that America has always prided itself on is moving forward in innovation. So we should be looking towards the future and be leading in this, not saying, oh no, we just want to keep doing what we've been doing, because the rest of the world is jumping ahead of us. And the rest of the world is leaning towards clean energy and won't be buying our energy if it's not clean very soon. So working on our thermal, investing in those job training is going to help with a lot of our factories. It's going to help with a lot of our jobs, because these are good paying jobs. These are jobs that we can train people for. And so that's going to help. We talked about transportation, more public transportation. I would love it if the federal government would put in high-speed trains. Can you imagine if we could have high-speed trains getting from place to place? And that would be absolutely amazing and wonderful. And then making sure we're holding people accountable. I teach with my students. We're actually just about to start going over the environmental movement of the 70s. And one of the reasons we got to that was we started seeing what was happening. Rachel Carson in Silent Springs started talking about it, and we actually had a river catch on fire. Like we're lucky with where we are now, so people think things are great, but it used to be a lot worse. And so we have to keep keeping people accountable for what they're doing when they're polluting. They just dumped all their garbage into the Sound. Mm-hmm. As the Sound is filling up right now with debris, eventually we're going to have to dredge that. And the smelter, what they've dumped in, we're going to be having to dredge that up. And that's a huge consequence that we're going to have. And so we need to keep people accountable for their actions and for what they're doing. And we need to invest in making sure that we have a green future, because our grandchildren deserve fresh air to breathe. We all deserve fresh food, and we all deserve fresh water, whether you're fishing or whether it's for the orcas or whether it's because you're playing in it. I don't know how many times we've had local lakes and local rivers where they tell us we can't be in them because they're too polluted. And we have the ability to fix those things. We just have to make sure we do it because our grandkids depend on it.
Yeah. Thank you. So now's the time that you can talk about whatever you want. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that you'd like to talk about? And, just give us some final thoughts.
Thank you. So, you've touched on a lot of amazing topics. I definitely appreciate the time to be able to talk with everyone. And I'm a teacher. I got inspired by my students, wanting to make sure that they have a future, wanting to make sure that they have the skills they need, whether it's going to college or in the trades or starting their own jobs or going straight into careers, making sure that they have healthcare. And we can see with COVID more than ever that healthcare matters, and we have to have access to it. Everybody deserves access to it. Too many times people have to decide, do I go to work or do I take my kid to the doctor? Because if they take their kid to the doctor, they might lose their job. But can they even afford to take their kid to the doctor? I've heard too many stories where I know somebody who found a lump in their breast, and they said, well, what's the point of going to the doctor? If it's cancer, I can't afford it anyways. And we shouldn't be there. We are the richest country in the world. We have the ability to help people. We are the only industrialized nation that doesn't have access for everybody to healthcare. And if it's because, and we should do it because it's the right thing to do. And for those who still, well, I'm not sure. Well, every study has shown that when you give people access to primary care early on, it also saves us money in the long run, because you're not ending up in the emergency room because you left your cold so long that it's turned into pneumonia. because you're not ending up in the emergency room because of something minor, potentially even because you don't have that primary care physician, because we all end up paying for that in the end, or because you're not calling the fire department because you haven't been able to afford your diabetes medication, but you know when you call the fire department, they'll be able to take you to the hospital and you'll get it. And then you'll be calling them in a few days later. Brian Duffy, who's running for position 2, has been telling me so many stories like that he finds over and over and over again. And so we can do better. We have the ability to work together. And COVID has shown us that leadership matters. And local leadership matters more than ever before. It's leadership to listen to the people in the community, to take the ideas back. Because I'm going to tell you right now, the best ideas always come when you work together and always come when you listen to others. I don't have solutions to everything. The ideas I have is because I've been talking with community members and people who have said, hey, what about this? And we found ways to make it work. And so I want to go down to Olympia to bring our ideas forward, to listen to everyone, and to make sure that everyone has a seat at the table. Because those who are most impacted by it, whether it's businesses, whether it's racial equity, whether it's education, whether it's homelessness, whether it's housing, they need to have that seat at the table because they're the ones who are going to have the best idea and the best perspective of how we should be moving forward.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. You gave us a lot to think about and got some great ideas. So thank you so much for joining us today. I am going to go ahead and end it here, but I again, thank you for joining us. And the Chamber will be doing one more. I've got one more of these interviews scheduled for next week. I'll be interviewing Marilyn Strickland on Tuesday. So tune in on Tuesday. And I want to encourage everyone who watches this also to share. I'm going to be sharing it with all of my Chamber members and encouraging lots of sharing. So if anyone sees this, feel free to share it also. So anyway, well, thank you and hope you all have a wonderful